to the YBAWM culture that will save closing churches of America. It'll be a open dialogue, and Pastor Chang, who is serving the New York to the World Church, and who has been very good mentor for all the young adults in the region, and also has been ministering in the Tarakbang ministry for past 2 decades, will open a prayer for us.
기도하십시다. 사랑의 아버지 하나님, 우리에게 한 시대에 가장 좋은 시대를 허락하시고 또 그 시대보다도 지구 생기고 가장 좋은 시대에 우리에게도 젊음을 허락하셔서 하나님 귀한 복음의 역사에 동참할 수 있도록 은혜 허락하신 주님을 찬양하며 영광을 돌립니다. 우리 인생의 기회가 한시 한초도 헛되이 돌아가지 않도록 주님 저희들의 생각을 붙들어 주시옵소서. 특별히 전 세계가 가장 중요한 경제 속에 있는데 흑암의 경제를 능가할 수 있는, 그리고 흑암의 경제를 완전히 정복할 수 있는 복음의 경제가 회복되게 하옵소서. 사랑의 아버지 하나님, 우리의 생각을 주 앞에 포커스를 맞출 수 있도록 은혜를 주시고 세상을 정확하게 보는 우리의 눈을 허락하여 주시옵소서. 세상 사람들이 따라오지 못하는, 생각하지도 못하는, 그들이 따라올 수밖에 없는 축복 속에 우리가 쓰임받게 하옵소서. 우리 영산업인들을 축복하여 주시옵시고 모든 삶의 현장에, 가정의 현장에, 직장의 현장에, 만남의 현장 속에 정말 하나님께서 한 시대를 이끌어갈 수 있는 지혜와 명철을 허락하여 주옵소서. 하나님께 방향 맞춘 자들에게 모든 경제가 따라왔습니다. 바울이 복음을 위하여 포커스를 맞추고 가는 곳곳마다 모든 산업인들을 만나게 하셨던 주님.
So wherever Paul went with the focus on the gospel alone, you grant everything.
오늘 이 영산업인들이 하나님 앞에 가장 귀한 현장에 쓰임받는 주인공들이 되게 하옵소서.
May all these young business persons be the main protagonists to.
또 이들 앞에 흑암의 모든 문제들이 무너지게 하옵소서.
So before these people, all the culture of darkness.
오늘도 우리에게 가장 좋은 시간 주심을 감사합니다.
Thank you for granting us this grace.
우리의 포럼과 대화가 축복이요 은혜가 되게 하옵소서.
So may we see whatever we see be the grace.
우리 주 예수 그리스도 이름으로 감사하며 기도하옵나이다.
In Jesus' name we pray.
아멘.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Jae-hee. I serve the Emmanuel New York Church, and I also serve the YBAWM New York as a chief of staff. And it's nice to meet you all. This will be very open dialogue. It's 2 ways, so we'll ask a lot of questions and hear about their experiences, their covenant journey. So feel free to just jot down the questions and ask them anything. So we'll first go around the panels and introduce their themselves, where they work, and their covenant journey.
So I'm Sue from San Francisco. I'm serving Oakland Secular Church in Oakland, California, and I'm working for a little startup as a chief strategy officer.
I'm Tim from Los Angeles, and sometimes I go to Antioch Mission Church with Dr. Sonok Semi, but I have my own Chinese church that I go to. And for the last 3.5 years, I was in Ethiopia teaching biomedical engineering at a university, and I'm currently looking for God's plan to get back into the university system in LA as I attend RU.
Hello everyone, my name is Esther Han. I am currently serving Antioch Mission Church always. and I am working as a district attorney in LA County. I was in Tulare County before that, and I'm also currently attending RU online.
Thank you, though. I'm Esther's friend, Eddie. Also from LA, but a transplant that lives in New Jersey right now. I work at the intersection of investment banking and blockchain, if you can believe that. And I attend New York Emmanuel Church with Jay.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. I'd also like to hear everybody just introduce yourself, and also can I just hear what you think YBAWM culture is that will save closing churches of America? Just what do you think YBAWM culture is?
We'll start.
Yeah.
Or if you could just stand up and speak loudly, because I can't read.
That's good. Hi, I'm DK. I'm a new believer of 3 months. I can't really say much about the YBAWM culture, but I think it's. So I'm a consultant for Accenture, and it seems like within the consulting field, there's really not that much space for evangelism. And for me to be here and go through this process as a new believer, I feel like there's some type of calling or some type of need for evangelism in the consulting field as well.
What region are you from?
DC.
Okay.
And I heard about you and
I just heard about
your.
you too.
Okay.
I'll for you.
We'll connect afterwards.
The military guy, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
My name is Samuel Kim. I currently work as an appraiser for the Los Angeles County Assessor's Office. We do property valuation for property tax purposes. Currently serving as a translator, deacon at Christ Covenant Church, Pastor Peter's son. How do you know that?
Samuel does it all the
Oh,
time.
really? Oh my god. Okay. YBAWM culture. I don't know. I haven't really been going to the meetings in LA, but I think definitely we'll start going. And yeah, I think culture. I should have thought about this before I mixed it up.
Or we could come back.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna make it up as I go. I would like to see be kind of a place where people can come together, or religions can come together and just leverage our talents to do something that's beneficial to the gospel and beneficial to missions. So I hope that we can accomplish something like that along those lines.
Hi, my name is Chris. I go to NABEC Mission Church in Los Angeles, California. I'm employed. I just quit my job 2 weeks ago, so I had time to come here. It's nice. And I don't know what YBAWM is, so I just came in just now. So awesome.
Hello, my name is Nari Choi. I'm from Florida. I serve Korean United Methodist Church of South Florida, which is not Tarakwam Church, but I moved to in San Francisco and Palo Alto, and then I served the Oakland Church for 3-4 months, and then I moved to Florida. But I still listen to the sermons every week, and the forum with Zoom. I come to RCA all those conference. I try to come. So I work at a technology startup. I'm heading business and sales strategy there. Our company is developing next generation wearable computer, so glasses. The reason why I was interested in this forum was I'm personally interested in entrepreneurship, like building a company and fostering next generation entrepreneurs, including myself. So I thought, especially within the entrepreneurship, culture is very important, and evangelism, like knowing God, is very key in the entrepreneurial environment. So look forward to the discussion.
Awesome.
sit here so that I can have more time to think about it. By the way, she's my wife, so it's excusable.
My name is Jian, and I also serve Oakland Church near San Francisco. I lived and work in San Jose as an accountant. We have in San Jose area, the Silicon Valley, we have regional church every Friday based on the business missions, but it's very first time for me to actually see the people in Hong Kong. I want to hear more about the field.
My name is Daniel Chang. I serve North Carolina Antioch Presbyterian Church in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. I'm a deacon there, and I'm a believer. And I just met Jakey and Eddie and YBAWM 5 months ago. I've attended a few of their YBAWM calls and their Saturday morning conference calls as well. I'm in e-commerce, and what I think YBAWM culture is a place where young business people are able to form with each other and share how God is working in each other's workplaces and in each other's fields. And I'm excited to see how God will take YBAWM, how God's going to use us in the next 5 to 10 years. Amen.
Okay. My name is David Kim, and I'm currently serving as a deacon at Emmanuel's Church of Southern California in LA. And I do e-commerce. And it's especially in the company of developing and researching dietary supplements.
So I thought we're staying together.
Yeah.
Did you guys know each other before this conference?
No.
And did you just tell me you're going to a dietary supplement conference in Baltimore next week?
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, dude, okay.
It was a prayer topic before I came here.
So my journey here. I was born and raised in Darwin. I think the YBAWM culture. What comes to my mind is I think it comes to me as the word oneness. So just like Pastor Yu said earlier, a couple hours ago, I think maybe my personal prayer topic has been kind of we need to have like a platform for which we can be united together as a young business person for the revolution, because only then we can really truly build up a blessing or system of finance that can last until the end of the earth. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Hi, my name is Alice, and I serve at Seattle Overlake Church as a deaconess. And I'm currently in the marketing field in fashion retail. I work at Nordstrom Corporate. YBAWM culture. In Seattle, it just formed like this year, and if I'm being honest, I was just kind of like appointed as a vice. Like I didn't really have an option, so I didn't have much time to really think about what that means or what that even is. And I just kind of got like pushed into it, and part of it is because you don't have that many people and whatever. And I think just hearing everybody talking, and I agree with Daniel and both and David about what I think it means. I think it's very important that us as young business people who may have similar interests or have specialties and we can help each other. But I've also always kind of thought about how different religious organizations, or like the three organizations like Mormons, the Jewish organization, how they're able to be so well connected that they're able to help their future generation, like remnants. And I think as Pastor Yu was saying, a lot of the older generation, not to fault them, but they're just not there. And so hopefully we're the age who can do that, or we're the generation who can do that for our future generations.
Well, I'm Pastor Dick Snyder, and I'm a lot younger than I look. I'm not part of that generation she's given me. I'm an evangelist, and my target is your age. And I want to see what your culture is and how you think. I have a very good feel of how the New Age think, and how lost they are, and how they don't have purpose in their life, and they don't know who they are. And so I want to be able to see the difference. And so I'm going to learn from you.
Hi, my name is Grace Ryu from Boston Independent Church, and I'm a software engineer in a mobile app. I was like an iOS developer at Disney right now, and actually next week I'm moving to New York for a job. But the reason I came here is because YBAWM, it's kind of new to me still. Like in Boston, there are so many young professionals and recent college graduates. Like most of church members are in that age, but I don't think we've been exposed enough to know what YBAWM is, or what it is like to be a remnant and young professional. So I want to learn. Nobody besides our pastor didn't come here because there were other stuff happening. But I really want to learn and hear from other people about what it really means to be young professionals. I think it's a great opportunity for me to learn and see how other people who've been walking this path already, how they're doing, how they're enjoying the blessings of Emmanuel in their field.
Hello, my name is Clay Kim, and I'm from Austin, Texas. And I serve Austin my own church, and I work for AMP, which stands for Advanced Micro Devices. But I don't do any graphic designs. Basically what I do is I manage web contents, and I deal with translations. So I basically QA translations, but I don't translate myself. I'm a QA person that all the materials that are translated. So that's basically what I do for my job currently. And in Texas, in general, we started that very recently, and we don't have a set system at this moment, so we're still working on it. So, but I think what culture is something that, hearing from the pastor you said, it's something that we, as young people, we can have some ideas that old generation wouldn't have, but then not just ideas, but with the gospel, and just gather that together. I think that would be a culture of YBAWM.
My name is Julie, and I'm a chef, and I'm a French cooking chef. Yeah, I used to live in Europe for 8 years, and I was working and graduating from school here. And actually, I have a 3-year-old daughter, and then for 4 years, just pregnancy, and then really tried to just being a housewife for a while. So it was cooking at home. Yeah, and then I was preparing opening a restaurant in New York last year, but it was not working well. And then my father is a believer of Tarapang, so he played for me all the time. But just I think I take a new believer, because I didn't go to the church for 5 years, and then a month of I moved to Texas. Yeah, so I came here. I don't know anything about like Darapang and Alas. Like I missed the messages and participate in the worship and everything for 5 years. So I don't know anything, but just I want to recover my faith and just I want like I feel like I want to pursue my career. My daughter is old enough to go to school, and then just I think I'm very talented in cook, so just I came here to know like what God's think and will for me, like to like because I was not a chef in Korea. Just I moved 8 years old to America, and then before I was a teacher and then marketing, like a marketing major and something like that. But it totally changed my career to like being a chef. So just changed, went to the new school, and it was really hard for over 30 years, and it changed like as an Asian woman in New York City, like fine dining is not easy at all. So it's a really tough job, and then I got through it and I was very successful, and then I just catch up really fast. So at the time, just I was not a believer, so just doing something I would like it, but yeah. So I want to know and evolve more. Like it's just so for now just I cannot like it's just for me like a 237 countries a little bit far from me because I want to build up my faith first, and then that's like how I hear.
My name is Danny. I go to Oakland Secular Church, located in Oakland, right next to San Francisco. I've been talking about maybe 30 years. I started to go to Taiwan like maybe when I was 3rd grade or something. And I hated Taiwan at the time because my mom would talk about SOU and about, what about other pastors? And then my first kind of a little retreat that Tonsang Church when I was 5th grade, and during summertime, and I also hated it because Pastor Yu told me that I need to do it. I need to throw all the Sautezi albums and anyway, since then I'm still here and as a remnant, and I'm really happy about that. And in terms of the YBAWM culture, I think that it's more like I guess remnant culture plus more resources. Back in the days, when we sung about we are the remnants, and then at the time like we had remnants, but with hearts. But then I guess at the time we didn't have that much resources. But now like we all grown up, and then like we all here, like I know these all like some of these people like we grew up together in the churches. But then I know we got more resources. So I guess I'm really excited about that. How I want to contribute for good things for saving this clothing. Churches in America. By the way, I would get Google Play movies and I would get Google Play movies and TVs. And basically, what I do is I use all the movies from Disney, Fox, 21st Century, NBC, whatever, into Google Play movies and TV films. And I'm not a developer, I'm not a software engineer, but I do what they do, basically, except coding. That's what I do, and I'm really excited about how YBAWM culture could. Where it goes to, where it moves to.
My name is Rose Kim. I serve the same church with my Secular Church. Actually, I work at a university, so there's a specialized department of cultural history, so I haven't really been involved with this YBAWM, but I came here to learn, and also, especially I teach in research about business, so actually many business aspiring business professionals or students actually came to say goodbyes, but I don't really have that because there's a gap between practice and also theory. So I came here to learn, and also so that I can help other culture students in that aspect. And I think the remnant pray, I think everybody does, but pray for the remnant in America to continue gospel movement, and I think the remnant young people who grew up as a remnant are critical backbone for this movement. So that's why I think
this is really important. Thank you.
I am Paul Lee. I serve Seattle Emmanuel Church. I'm in the Army. I've been in about 12, 13 years. I grew up here, but after college, so I went to school here at the University of Washington. And after college, because of my job, I had to leave the city. So before college, I've been attending NABEC Church here in this area. And when I came back after 10 years, which is last year, I saw no change. The churches were small, still there's not many remnants. Before I left, I was the remnant. I was that young kid, right? When I came back, now I'm in my 30s. No one, and that really made me sad. That really hit me. And even though I was, I have absolutely no desire of being a pastor or any type of remnant ministry, I think because that sadness that I felt, I decided to kind of argue, and I've been studying there. Hopefully, this event that we're doing today here, it starts everything, not just for all of us, but especially this area. Once you guys leave, you guys take whatever blessing you guys have here, you take it back to your area, but I want the people here to maintain what we receive, continue this process and develop our system. So next year we could meet again and say, hey, since last year we've grown and we could help others. So, yep, that's what I'm praying for.
Sorry, what are we?
Introductions.
Myself?
Introduce yourself and what your thoughts are on the term YBAWM culture.
I'm Letitia from Canada. Attending the Covenant Church. Been in Canada for 16 years, and I see a lot of them coming and going, and some stays and some leaves. We always want to be part of North America. I believe we're on the other side of it. So not everybody will attend. So we also want to come and start joining. We want to be part of the flow. So I guess this is beginning for us too. This is the first year that first our I believe myself he's going to be here now. So we all want to be part of it. We actually want to be in the movement for the remnant, especially next generation, because we see we grow, but there's no younger ones. I guess that's it. For Canada and be a part of this America, so we can actually walk into the right movement together.
한국말로 하겠습니다. 요즘 원리스교회 혹시 집사님 오셨어요? 요즘 원리스교회 혹시 집사님?
Speaking I'm sorry, what was the name?
Oxen from New Jersey? You just Witness Church.
지금 하고 있는 일은 소방 일반 엔지니어를 하고 있습니다.
So it's a firefighting engineer, fire protection engineer.
그리고 지금 YBAWM 컬처에 대해서는 저는 네트워킹 중요하다.
What's important for YBAWM culture is networking.
일단 YBAWM의 나오시는 분도 꽤 있다고 생각합니다.
I also believe there are many people who are unable to be part of YBAWM.
사실 저희가 이제 거의 사회인 만큼 잡 타임 포지션 그리고 이런 잉글리시 그런 부담들 때문에 못 오고 있다는 부분도 꽤 있다고
Because we're part of society, because of our job title and work, and there's difficulty in being involved, also a lack of speaking English.
제가 20년 동안 미국에 살았는데 너무 부담 없이 없어요. 그런 YBAWM이
I've been living in America for 20 years, but if someone like me, I hope that could attend YBAWM.
지금 하고 있는 활동에 대해서 되게 감사하게 생각을 하고 있고요.
I feel very thankful for all the activities that YBAWM is doing.
앞으로 이제 토목팀은 작은 영역이지만 이렇게 합쳐질 때는 힘을 낼 수 있을 그런 YBAWM 될 수 있게
I really hope for a YBAWM that's stronger, more networked.
개인적으로 ITC에도 북동부 쪽에 ITC를 지금 추진하고 있고요.
Northeast. So he is in charge of acquiring an RUTC for the Northeast region. And we're asking a lot of prayer for YBAWM.
Hello everyone, my name is Mantapia. I am assistant pastor. I'm serving assistant pastor to the World Church in New York with Pastor Chan. And actually, I'm from Peru originally, so I'm very thankful to be here with you guys. In my size, in the spiritual way, I live in my walk of faith like a pastor. I'm very glad and thankful to God to see people like you arise in United States. And for me, like YBAWM is like, in our terminology, Tarpan terminology is like the sacred squad God is preparing to save the closing churches in America. And you younger people are very important because remnants depends on us for the future. So thank you very much. And nice to meet you guys.
Hi, my name is Daniel Lee. I'm an associate pastor at Christ in Their Church in Maryland. And I'm glad to be here with you guys. And when I think of YBAWM culture, I think of just a place to, I guess, be creative, because you guys are all in your respective fields, and there's a lot of ideas, especially with the young business. And that gives a lot of hope for the future of the church, because of just the culture that we live in, and being able to possess this gospel within a culture that is very against it at times, or all the time. To be able to kind of pierce through that and really through your businesses or through your work fields to really display life movement and really be able to not just save our own churches, but to save the churches that are closing. And I think that's so important, especially now, because there's a lot of people that don't have answers, that are in your fields, and that are struggling without answers, and that really need a church that has a strong foundation. And there's people from different backgrounds, and and civil engineering or firefighting. There's a lot of different things, and this is just a great kind of melting pot to really see and brainstorm too how we can impact the remnants and the churches that we serve, but the culture in itself to really be a cultural summit for this nation. So thank you guys so much for actually I'm thankful for being here. Thank you guys for sharing and of your feelings as well.
My name is I'm Pastor Chan at New York to the World Church. You are the remnant. nomnet. Nomnet, NUMNANT, is the coordinator for young generation to old generation.
Oh.
It's two different. It's a new sound, but it's very good. Yeah, but I'm a little bit old, but my mind is all the time the young generation. Forever young.
Yes.
I usually meet this New York YBAWM, and I'm so glad. Yeah, I saw the discussion and everything, very good, very interesting. When I come here, I join you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Quickly introduce yourself and share what you think YBAWM culture is.
YBAWM culture?
Yeah, just quickly introduce yourself and.
Okay, my name is Ray Kim from Austin, Texas. I'm doing civil engineering work. I'm mostly doing like water, drinking water, wastewater, storm drain design. So I want to use my specialty for all the individual to developing country and will develop like their civil engineering system and then raise the disciples there. And YBAWM culture. I want to have our networking system so that we can help the remnants. Because I'm not sure about your church, but we have very small church. But there are many remnants who are interested in some specific field. But I actually don't know how I can help them. So I just want to know like your specialty and then like my field so that we can build a network so that maybe remnants are interested in some fields and then I can introduce to some specific young business person. So yeah, thank you.
Ray, quick question. Did you go to Vanuatu or are you involved with that or not?
Oh, yeah. Maybe later.
Very soon.
Hi, my name is Tae-Jin Chun. I'm from Oakland Secular Church. I'm working at AI domain. And right now I'm looking at startup. And I think regarding the culture of I think being oneness in gospel, I think that's the starting. And then I don't have an answer, but I think we need to progress little by little realistically. Like I think it's not an easy thing, like doing like Pastor Yu said, like Samgyeop, but I think how because we all work on other field of domain, and I don't know how we can make a company that can really do the mission, supporting them and those things. I think it would be great if we can discuss those things. Yeah, so thank you.
Park. Oh, me? Okay, sorry. Didn't know I was on. Okay. My name is Mark Wong. I am a child of God. I am. Introducing myself. And I'm a husband to my wife Sylvia and father to two children, Daniel and Evelyn. I serve New Jersey Oneness Church with Deacon Oak. And I work in cybersecurity domain right now, for specifically in banking. However, I know this applies to everything that you do. What I think of YBAWM and its culture. Who's in your 30s right now? 20s? 40s? So, yeah, so I think we're in a very unique generation. People call it, no, not that, the millennials, right? Millennials, we grew up with cassette tapes and we jumped to CDs and now files only, phones without microphone jack. God knows where we're going next, right? So we're living in an age of productivity like no other before, connectedness with like no other before. We're so connected. We have so much we can work with. Pastor Liu called it leverage. We call it tools, whatever. But so much of that we grew up with, and so many possibilities. And we can talk about networking. We can talk about raising up next generation disciples. But so much that are in my head. But I'm sure it's the same thing for you guys. But when I came to think about 3 types of entrepreneurship, it was so daunting. I had no hope. I didn't know where to start or who to talk to even to imagine what to do about it. But together as a collective group, I think that there's much of what God can do through us. We have so many different types of specialties here that I've heard, even just us, among us. And yeah, we're in a very unique position, not only generation-wise, but also the things that we are capable of what God gave to us. So very expectant of a lot of good things in the near future, especially after Pastor Liu telling us to start this missional group within YBAWM. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
David?
What do you think now?
My name is David. I didn't try to come here. I was forced to record. But I'm a deacon going to C4. I'm an entrepreneur. I love creating companies and really solving problems. Right now, one of the companies, I'm mainly in e-commerce, helping companies sell more efficiently, effectively online. What I think about YBAWM culture, I think it's really coming together systematically, helping the remnants grow up within the gospel, and to really help the churches, the pioneering churches, to be established. Yep.
Well, just hearing your introductions and thoughts, it just helped me organize my thoughts about YBAWM culture, because to be honest, I didn't know what to imagine or just visualize. But I think Danny's point about okay, this is remnant plus resources, I would put it as remnant culture plus occupation. And I think occupation actually means many things, or a lot of things, because basically it entails our life, because it's aligned with our life. So if you get to find out what your occupation is about, I think it also helps how you can visualize your CBDIP along with your occupation. And I think that actually really touched me, when you talked about how Seattle was as is when you came back 10 years after, because because here being in the US, because students, they just move here and there, we think we're raising this child up, and then 3 years later he moves out. So maybe the pastors would feel okay, I put everything for this child or this remnant, but then he moves out and we don't have anyone here in my church. But I think, and even for the students as well, these people, okay, I'm gonna be maybe moving out 4 years after when I graduate, so they don't, most of the, not sometimes, not all times, always, but sometimes they have a like thought like, okay, I'm going anyways at 4 years after, so they will be like, okay, I'm spending 4 years here, but like later, it's not gonna be my church, so they are not able to put their hearts or thoughts into the church. But I think that if we get to help these remnants align to or open their spiritual eyes to see how this 4 years of yours in this church would be aligned with your lifetime, then I think that it at the end of the day it's gonna help this remnant grow up spiritually, but help the church revive as well. So that's one thing. So I think the culture, just simply put, of what YBAWM culture is it's having the directions for missions within the church, which is for the remnants, but at the same time for outside of the church. If we can have this network of a lot of different people, then we can invite these people into the church, and then maybe helping this person because occupation, it's a problem issue for non-believers too. So if we can just invite this person in, oh, I can introduce you to this person so he can help you out, and then maybe we can invite this person into the church, and then we just be the part of the same thing. So with the direction of missions in the church for the remnants and the future remnants outside of the church, I think that's one culture of YBAWM. But at the same time, so Taejin talked about like how we can create a company for missions, like three entrepreneurships or three entrepreneurships. So if as of now, I have no idea how we can do it. Yeah, we are all from different backgrounds, but how are we gonna just gather all these different things together to create a company to do missions, help the missionaries on a regular basis? I don't know of it yet, but I do believe that we can do it maybe 5 years after, 10 years after, if we get to have this network within ourselves.
So I definitely agree with everything that everyone said about the importance of occupation and helping these kids find a way, figure out a way in life. However, one thing that I think is so valuable about YBAWM culture and our roles in being role models for these kids and the remnants is kind of the emotional aspect too, right? We're right now in America, we're battling an age of mental illness and drug addiction because these kids cannot battle the pressures of the world. And as a prosecutor, I see that a lot, right? These kids who can't cope, these kids who grow up under broken families and they don't know a way out, and so they turn to crime, they turn to drugs, they turn to gangs who kind of have this opening environment of, oh, your family is not rich, we can give you money. Oh, your family doesn't love you, like this is a brotherhood, and so yes, absolutely, helping these kids bridge a way in occupation is important, but I think a crucial part that we also play is in discussing the problems that we've been through, right? Like a bunch of us have dealt with issues that kids don't know about because to them we're all like, oh my gosh, they're adults, they have everything, together, but they don't know. Well, maybe not me when they look at me. But there's just so much more that the remnants need us for, right? They need to, one of the most crucial things that we can do for them is showing them that yes, we've gone through this struggle. Yes, we're still struggling right now. And yes, we're struggling with you. And I think that, in my experience, has made the gospel a lot more tangible to them. So I think I will just kind of throw that out there.
And to kind of add to that, I think like at my last pulpit message, there was the pastor mentioned a statistic that if a kid has at least like 3 friends inside the church, then that kid's not gonna leave. And so what that kind of means is that maybe even within the churches, people don't make friends, that they're just kind of hang out there, but there's no real connection. between the people. And when there's no connection, it's just like fundamentally the reason why there's a disconnect is because people aren't really enjoying the gospel. They're caught up in other things. They're caught up in their legalism. They're caught up in their own ideologies. And so I think I was talking to one of the elders at my church, and he said he's a high school teacher, actually. And sometimes he would get, and his story really touched me. There was some students, they come to school, and if the students are falling asleep in class, then he gets really frustrated. And I was like, yeah, I understand, because in the university system that happens all the time as well. And so what he told me was, like, at first he would like get mad at those kids, be like, okay, look, you put your head down. Maybe you're feeling sick, you want to go to the nurse, I can send you to the nurse, right? But then he attended a secular training, actually, by a child psychologist. And the psychologist was saying that, in these schools, there's a reason why these kids are coming sleepy. There might be some difficulties at home. They might be put through like some sort of difficult situation. And so when they come to school, that's the only time that they can have rest. And so in a similar way, like if the church environment is not a place where people can rest, if it's a place where people are just fighting or talking about other things, like that's not really what the next generation needs. And if it doesn't matter if other people don't understand that, if we understand, look, church is not necessarily a place where we have to like get a bunch of stuff done. Church is just a place where people like they want to come. It's a happy place. It's a place where people can really rest and to receive strength. And if we can open our eyes to see that spiritual situation for ourselves and for other people, then church will be that place where people really want to come, especially the children, the next generation.
You ready?
So, YBAWM culture. I'm glad Pastor Yu gave us the blueprint 2 hours ago for what YBAWM culture should be. So, I'm just going to look at my notes right now. I think it starts with the first 2 points, right? He says you need to have a proper sense of your worldview. And you need to have word, prayer, evangelization, organized, arranged in our lives. And so, for me, YBAWM culture starts there. It has to start with, have I found my answer only in Christ? Because only if I've organized that can I relay that to someone else. Can I rely on that strength versus hitting the lottery one day and thinking, oh, this must be from God, and I'm going to do this amazing stuff. And so, I think once I found my answer to that, and that has become our culture. And what we form about is before we form about what should we do, we form about like where am I at and who am I with. I think once we have that answer done, then we can talk about all the stuff I'm talking about. What should we do? And I think that's why his third point is we need to arrange our view of offering. And I think when he was mentioning the heroes today, and I think this is the second part of YBAWM culture, the networking aspect that Sim was talking about. And the communication, but each of the heroes that he was talking about, like when you talk about Esther, she wasn't just like another like hot person that was just there. Like she was able to do something about them. And when he talked about Obadiah, he wasn't just somebody that held to the covenant, but he was able to do something about them. And each one of them was given something. And I think our culture, I think where we need to go next is where we help each other discover our God-given talents and how we can best leverage that for the purpose of
Thank you, everybody. I think for me, it's YBAWM culture. At the end of the day, we exist because the church exists. Without the church, none of us would have heard the gospel. And I think hearing someone like, hearing from everybody and hearing the heart of someone saying that he felt sad when he came back to see the church was the same. As such, he went to receive training in RU, and really hearing that heart actually touches me. And also, when someone confesses about their faith in Ephesians 5:23, as Christ also is the head of the church, he himself being the savior of the body, and how when someone else talks badly about the church, it also hurts them personally very much, spiritually, and hearing that also impacts me powerfully. And I think we all have, our church is probably all in different sizes and probably all in different spiritual address. And however, God built that church, and the church is the first key that God gave to us when Peter confessed Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. So the problems that God gives to church is not because He exposing weaknesses, but rather He's trying to give us the answer and key. So I would like to hear from you guys that what is the biggest challenge that you face in your church and how God has answered. And
So coming from Ethiopia, I think I had more challenges than the average person. My pastor in Ethiopia, my pastor was an Ethiopian, and so obviously he could not have had any Tarabang training. About 2 years ago, there was a pastor. He was here, but he stepped out. I think his English may not be like perfect, but he gave a young adult seminar about 2 years ago, and one thing that I held on to, this was like in the middle of my tenure in Ethiopia, he said, you have to believe that your pastor is the best pastor in Tarapang. And then I was like, yeah, okay, but my pastor's not in Tarapang, so he's not the best pastor. And it was just this kind of unbelief that I had, right? I didn't understand what he was talking about, but as I held on to those words, right, it completely transformed how I viewed my church. When I first got to my church, of course, my pastor was talking about something else, about being influential or about, doing great things for the kingdom of God and things like that, just like any sort of like normal church. But so how God worked through that church is that me, instead of trying to teach my pastor anything and trying to lead my Ethiopian pastor, I kind of dropped all of that. And all I did was I just prayed before God, and God gave me the answer through the disciples that he had prepared in the church. And all I did with that was just do the word movement with them. After hearing the message, most people, they just forget it, they just go home. But there was a small group of individuals who were really interested in talking about the word and discussing the word. And so what I realized is that it doesn't matter who is giving the message at first. Okay, when we're trying to save these churches that don't have the gospel, for me, I have no authority to give the message of that church, and it really doesn't matter. All I have to do is teach other people to hold on to the message, even if it's the correct message, and if they're not holding on to it, doesn't really matter. So I taught these people how to hold on to the message, and for me myself, I realized what I could do is I could highlight what is the gospel message found within the pulpit message. And so by doing that, the remnants became they all came alive. And the most interesting thing was that the pastor realized this too. And then the pastor started to ask, whoa, what is this? What are you doing? Where is this kind of thing coming from? Because in Ethiopia, they don't listen to the message. All they do is sing and dance all day, which isn't bad. I mean, it's definitely a lot of fun. But in terms of doing the word movement, he saw how effective it was, and he was a witness to that. And that's how he went to the WRC this year, even though I didn't go. So it's that's how. So all of my unbelief regarding my pastor, all of my unbelief regarding the church, all of those things were completely irrelevant. And all I did was hold on to the covenant myself, do the word movement with the disciples whom God has prepared, and God completely transformed everything.
So, like Paul and DK, I'm also a military veteran, so I will use a military analogy. For those of you who know, there's a saying in the Army. It says that they say that the non-commissioned officer is a backbone of the Army, and that's the way that I feel YBAWM's role is within the church and within the movement. At our church, we have all the issues that every church has. Everybody wants to do what they want to do in the name of the gospel. But one thing is clear, because the gospel is trio. Did you say trio?
No, yeah.
But like, we're blessed with a ton of young adults in our church, and they do everything. Because you have the elders and the senior deaconesses, the pastors. Have you guys seen the movie Saving Private Ryan? They're like Tom Hanks, right? The old grizzled veteran that they've seen every battle, and they're in charge. And then you have like the remnants that are like Upham, right? They don't know do you guys remember Upham? The guy with the typewriter, remember? Upham? Remember that guy? Those are the remnants, right? They're just like getting dragged along. They're trying to figure out what to do. And you have the guys like Carparzo, and the sniper guy. Remember the sniper guy? Those guys are like the YBAWM folks. Like they're the ones that carry out the fight. And like in our church, it's the same way. The young adults do everything, and they raise the remnants. They serve as a key bridge between the remnants and the first generation, who are often unable to communicate to one another. And because they're on the front lines, we have to receive strength. And so I would say at our church, the problem is not that we don't have problems. The problem is that we have a bunch of young adults, but I would love to bring them into this flow. I would love to bring all of them. I think I can think about like 10 to 15 of them, and maybe 2 or 3 of them are in this flow. And I think it's so important because I feel like God is going to use this group. I really feel like, look at us, like we were educated here or we moved here early and we're working here and God has placed us in our respective fields. Like He's going to completely use us. And that's what I see at my church. And I see these young people and I want them to get involved.
So, as Eddie just said, one thing that I realized at our church is that there are just so many frames to break through. Our church is kind of older, and until now, pretty like recently, we only had a few young adults, 3 or 4. Now we have like 7. But before then, a lot fell on me. I don't know why, but I'm voluntold to do a lot of things. So things just kind of fall in my lap. And one thing that I realized was I had my frames because I just always thought, one, I'm so incapable. For me, I don't really have any merits for me to be able to serve the church effectively or to be able to help remnants effectively, but still, God has used me and put me in these positions, and so it's kind of taken a long time for me to break through that frame of I'm not good enough. Like I suck so much. Like how can God use me? But also at the same time, because a lot of the people at my church are older, they're a lot of me-centeredness. They're all praying people, so they're all they're all receiving answers from God, and they're all receiving grace, and yet they're in this part of like we can't do this, we can't do that. And one example is I used to start out playing the violin for the choir, but now I'm the conductor because the conductor left. And all of our choir members are grandmas and grandpas who cannot speak a lick of English. They cannot speak a lick of English. But when I stepped out as like a conductor, we started bringing in English lyrics to the song, to the praises, and it's always every week is this song is too hard. We can't speak English. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. And I would get very frustrated and be like, why? Like, you guys always talk about wanting to be multi-ethnic ministry. You guys always, get up there and pray about how like, oh, Gio, like multi-ethnic mission, but you don't want to like sing in English. And so, it's there. So that's just like one tiny, example of the kind of frames that they have, right? However, the answer that I received was actually given within the past week at the church officers seminar, which is first, that we are given the positions that we are given because God is putting us in that position, and it is to bless us, and it is to do His work, right? So even if we have these, misunderstandings about what our capabilities are, God is still using us nonetheless. And the second thing that I really realized and held on to is that because there are so many frames, that is why the young adults must stand. Before, where I used to look at kind of the older generations and think like, why can't you help me out more? Like, why can't you give me more guidance? Like, why? Instead, now I understand, like, this is why we're called to be that bridge. This is why we're called to be that stepping stone. And, even in today's message, the elders, the senior deaconesses, they are also my springboard, right? I can't complain about them because they are there because God put them there. And so, one, to be able to see through my frames and to understand like these frames are springboards, but their frames are also springboards for me. It just kind of lit a fire under my butt to be like, this is why the young adults need to save the churches. This is why it's, time for us to rise.
I guess if you have to list out all the problems that they encounter in the church, I think all the same, maybe all the same kind of conflicts. But I think looking back, when I get to have a problem or feel that there is a problem, what I did personally was, number one, God knows, and He is the sovereignty God. And the fact that I feel like it's a problem, there must be something in me. Basically, Jesus is the Christ and He's the solution to everything. And that's what the Bible says, and that's what God says. But I feel like it's a problem. Then it means that for me, Jesus is not the Christ for this very specific problem. But then this is an opportunity for me. Then, okay, then God, so how do I solve this problem? So on my side, that Jesus can really becomes Christ for this very problem. I think that was the kind of the double-sided conflict for me, like when I feel like there was a problem. So, but at the end of the day, so for one example that I can bring to is, okay, so I think one of the problems that we had in the church is basically it all nails down to the fact that these people do not know how to apply the word of God from the pulpit. That's one of the main reasons why they're having this conflict in the church. But then how do I help these people? Then my answer to that question was then, why don't I help these people? Then I go out, meet with these people maybe just once a week, just every week. But then the kind of conflicts that I get to have, even when I'm doing this, is okay. So I go to your home because she or he does not come to me, or she or he does not waste his time to maybe spend 30 minutes to drive to my place. So I have to go to this person. I have to just prepare my message, or I have to prepare meals for this person. I prepare everything in order to make this time. I have to work really hard in my real time, in my work time, and then make this time and go. And then 10 minutes before, this person says, I don't want to do it today. I drove an hour to come here. And then she's like 10 minutes before, like, oh, I don't feel like doing it, sorry. And it happens every now and then if you're trying, we all know that, right? But then I'm not trying to say, but I went through it, so I'm now okay. I don't want to say that. Like, look at myself and then think, okay, I know it's not like I don't want to have this conflict, God, but why am I having it? Like drilling down this question, what I came to was, it's just a big answer for me, maybe not for you, but I got to discover the very mystery of Jesus Christ. Okay, what he did at the end of the day was, okay, he just received all the curses and disasters, which is the result of our sins. He put it on his body, he put it on the cross, he put it on the cross, and then he resurrected. And I'm like, okay, so this is the mystery of evangelism. So this person is so weak that she has to tell me, or he has to tell me that I don't want to do it. Like he's so me-centered because she's so weak. But I have to go into it because that has to be crucified on the cross. I have to go into it, suffer it, and then until she gets to resurrect, he gets to resurrect, I have to go through it. And then having gone through all this process, I think what I have gained is I now have a little more power to do this, not just for this church work, but even in your workplace. I see a lot of people taking advantage of what I do or what I earn for this person. But now that I have this power, I can utilize this 3 offices of Jesus Christ in my workplace as well. So I would say that's one of the greatest answers that I learned from that process or experience. And from this, another aspect that I got to have, or another answer that I got to receive was, okay, so the problem that I see in the church, these people, at the end of the day, they don't have the word of God within them. They don't know how to apply it in them. And then having this question, asking this question to God, that's how I came to have this lifelong vision of First Chronicles chapter 29. Okay, so this is what happened in the age of Samuel. This is what happened in the age of David. Okay, the Ark of the Covenant is just crawling on the floor. But the Israelites, they don't have anything. They don't have any feelings about what's going on. This Ark of the Covenant. But what David did at the end of the day was he recovered this Ark of the Covenant in the temples of God. So that, I think it's a really blessing that, okay, I started from having this conflict in me, but then how God overturned all that is he gave me or allowed me this lifelong vision of First Chronicles chapter 29. So I think that's a really great blessing. So I would say, okay, yes, there are many problems in your church, but God is alive. He has a reason, and he definitely wants to tell you something and heal you about something, and it's going to be turned into a blessing of your own.
Amen.
While listening, it reminded me of Ephesians 4:11-13. So Christ Himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers to equip His people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of fullness of Christ. So it just shows that God is building, through serving, God is building church, but also maturing each individual one of us into the fullness of Christ. So very thankful to hear, and also I see similar. I could also relate to multi-ethnic. I'm sure, I don't know how other people's church went about welcoming the multi-ethnic, and sometimes it doesn't really hit me until you actually help them one-on-one basis, or God really shows you. And would you guys like to share any of the things that the panelists discussed, and how God has answered and opened the door in your church? You could, yeah, if you guys have any questions.
This is kind of an example of what goes on in a YBAWM meeting in New York. Like this kind of I guess you guys were sharing forums, application of God's word in your life, and through just kind of the struggles that you had, you're sharing this forum about like realistic answers, like practical answers from how the message that was like a sermon went to actual application and answer for you. Is that kind of the roadmap that we have right now for our YBAWM meetings? I know you guys meet every Saturday.
Yeah.
You guys just to come into the flow of the word by listening to the message together.
So
what goes on in the meeting, I guess?
So-
How do you guys?
What we did was, I think initially when we were gonna start a chapter, it's like, oh, this is awesome. We're gonna do like this and this, and we're gonna like blow it away, blow it up in the kingdom of God, and then we took a step back and we said, well, you know what we need to do first? We need to receive truth. And so the first thing that we did was we created a platform so that people could come and receive strength. So what we do is every Saturday morning, it's early because it's 8. It's in Manhattan, which is a bummer because of the people that come, only 20% live in Manhattan. We wanted to be where it was the darkest. We wanted to be in the field. And so initially we met at a conference room at Chase WeWork, and we worshiped there at 8 a.m. All we did was we met, we listened to the business message, we worshiped, and we just sat around and had warm and ate donuts and we left. We did that for like 6 months, and then God began through the forum. He began revealing what He wanted us to do, and so from there we started like trying different things. And okay, like you do something and like it doesn't work out, so okay, that's probably not His plan. And then other things like, oh man, this is like, why don't we go and have worship at Remnant Day at the local church? There's 13 of them in our region. They're all super small. Right before we came here this past Saturday, we were at a church in the Remnant Day was at To the World Church, at Pastor Chang's church, but we had already had worship there. So our entire team, Mark was there as well, and there's a couple of folks that were in this room. There's about 15 of us that traveled to this church, and every Sunday I think they only had like 4 members at that church. So like we blessed them, we gave offering, we worshiped with them, and the pastor we just encouraged them. And so like that's something we tried out and said, oh, I think God wants us to use this to bless the pastors as well. But it all started with that platform for us receiving strength first, because without that we're basically running on our own strength. I will say this, I want us to kind of move forward, and so like what's been put on my heart, and it's so in line with the theme of this year's business conference. How do we see the churches in America? We have the gospel, and we're enjoying it. So how do we do this? And I think that's what we need to figure out. A couple of folks mentioned that David Kim from Emmanuel Church of Southern California. He asked this question in quotes, saying, how do we build up a system of finance that can last? I think that was exactly what you said. How do we build that up? And then and Tedrin also asked a similar question: how do we build a company that can do missions? Right? I think these are relevant questions we need to figure out. And so for me, I think it's like, how do we build how do we create a sustainable economy of light? Right? Something, because the Unification Church has a sustainable economy of light, and they're using that with the purpose of their church. The 3 organizations have it as well. And so for me, I don't know. I think that's what we need to form about next. I think there's all these chapters here, and everybody's meeting, and you guys are worshiping, and you're holding on to the covenant. I think we need to figure out the same way that when God told Abraham, "Hey, go to the place that I'm going to show you," and he just started walking, right? And then he was like, "Okay, this is the place." And so, how do we create that sustainable economy of light? What does that company look like that does missions? I don't know, but that's what I would like to form with folks. But to answer your question, it started with worship first. And that's all we did for 6 to 9 months. And then we started trying out other things.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about?
So about earlier about how the problems of the church I was that I'm serving at kind of came into an answer about that is let's face it, a lot I think well, officially the church that I'm serving Atlanta Church of Southern California has the most members within within the United States. So we have about upwards of like 300 people, and but even our church, we have financial issues, and I don't imagine I was thinking if our church is struggling with finance, like sending people, our pastors to South America, and we always have to do these special offerings, and our church we've been supporting our remnants to go to attend our RCA. That's actually our mystery of why from our church we have the most attendees every year, is because we actually support the remnants. But even that, we have to. This year we had to pull up 23K just to support remnants for RCA, and that's why and then unfortunately recently we faced a problem where some of our assistant pastors, we couldn't pay salary to some of our assistant pastors because of financial issues, but that became a time where me and some of our church members with the Namsangyoe, I guess men's ministry, started thinking about how do we build a sustainable system of finance so that it lasts. Because for instance, our men's ministry, every year our budget at end of the year is zero. It's not even like we're doing accounting for big corporation, but somehow we end up profit minus end up in zero leftover money for the next year, but then I was like, then we always go back to ground zero, and we were maybe we should build up a thinking of sustainable finance system to actually carry over next year and after, so that later on maybe we pass on 10 years down the road, pass down our men's ministry. I'm just talking about our church, but we have a certain amount of budget, so we can from there we can also support our churches, pastor going to mission or WIC, whatever, we can support that from there, and that's how that was the turning point where we started thinking about that, and upon praying about it for almost a very year, and I've been praying about it for coming to this conference, and then Pastor Yu, I think, kind of really gave me answer about like a few hours ago, about having a company entrepreneurship where we can that will sustain, and that was like, yeah, maybe there is really God's plan, and for that I was thinking of doing such as like even though we are in different specialties, if we try to like clump it all together, it might be really difficult. But money wise, we can clump up, right? So maybe we can build a company where we can acquire. So we can take examples of like what Unification Church or even Methodist Church do. They have a huge trust fund where they pay retired pastors with no problem, because the interest that comes out from the profit that comes out from the trust fund is so large that it's not going to dry, So and I feel like we if we're gonna be doing the world movement that's gonna last till the end of world evangelization, then such blessing is inevitable, right? And I think as a young adult, it's time to really take action into that. And like you said, we have to really truly discuss into how to put that into actualization. So well, anyway, yeah. So that I wanted to share how that really got me into thinking that, and also that actually became one of my double-sided contract between me and God. That's what. Yeah.
Can I say one thing? And so like I know like this is turned into a discussion about how do we make money for church. And so like let's be clear, money will not save the closing churches in America. Can we just be clear on that? And so but let's take it as a given that it's only holding on to Acts 1:38. But like I receive so much grace just listening to your forum, because and this is what we do, we just have fun, but like I had a discussion with Rose's husband earlier today, and for those of you who know, he's a venture capitalist. So I was just trying to get some ideas from him, like how could we do something like this? And I think it's time for us to like talk about something like this. So thanks.
First, let me thank each of you for your inputs. That's very helpful for my understanding. But let me give you some observations at the same time. I think your organization is focused inward. That's not what God's asking us to do. Matthew 28:18-20, we all know that. Stay, don't do anything, just learn, get better at yourself, make sure you have plenty of money. That's not what it says. Its first word says go. So I think your organization is a launch pad. Now you have to get your launch pad all ready, otherwise your rocket's going to go in the wrong direction. And yes, we're all learning, we're all growing. But God doesn't say when you are fully equipped and self-sufficient, go. Let us remember, I can do nothing on my own. And what I've been hearing is how difficult it is to do things on my own. But God says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So the first thing that I would like to suggest to you is grab a hold of faith. God's not saying turn your church into a money-making enterprise. In fact, as he threw out all the money makers, he says, why don't you live by faith, because my Father is the owner of the cattle on 10,000 hills. It's Christ that controls the money, not us. Amen. So we live by faith. And yes, we're going to have people of all different levels of spiritual experience within your group. The churches I visit, there aren't any young people. You're talking about how old people can't get anything done. I go to churches where they can't get anything done. They're stuck. You know, you can call it frame or mold or whatever you want to call it. I think it's probably, it's that bacterial mold, you know. Your rolling stone gathers no moss, so these people aren't rolling. They're just moss. But not you. The people I talk to who come to me would never go to church. So I say, well, why don't you go to church? Because I have all these questions, I have all these problems, and I don't get answers in church. In fact, I don't even get a chance to ask a question. Oh, they come, they pray, they sing. Guy gets up there and talks, and then they all go have coffee. Where do I get an opportunity to have my questions answered? What are your questions? These are what their questions are. those who do not have Christ. I don't know who I am. I don't know what my purpose is on earth. I'm trying to be a good person, but I've got all these things bombarding me. My life's all messed up, and I've resorted to trying to stop the pain with drugs or alcohol or any other access because I have no hope. Let's remind ourselves a second, all of us who are in this room, whether we're a new Christian or you've been a mature Christian, the first thing that we have is hope. We have Jesus Christ. We know our eternal destiny is heaven. So we're a citizen of heaven, and we're here trying to figure out how do we help those who do not have the citizenship in heaven. So if we spend all of our time trying to figure out how to fix me and not allow the Lord to do it, we're never going to be having more people come to our church because we're not drawing them to a church. Now we've got some Christians who have businesses and they have some excess money. Ask yourself, am I or is my church somewhere I'd be willing to invest money in? Is it on the move or is it dead on arrival? So what you need to do, young people, you are the future. When my generation has passed away, you've got the ball. And now you're going to be in charge of it. You are the people who are the hope of America and of the world. You are. And you can't do it sitting down worrying about your own circumstance. Come together, have forum, have discussions, talk about these things, learn and grow together. First thing Jesus said is go, make disciples. And he says baptize them. Oh, no, that's the pastor's job. Didn't say that. We've had a number of people baptized in my swimming pool before I was a pastor. Then he says, teach them what? To obey everything I've commanded you. Teach them to obey everything I've commanded you. And I'm never going to leave you. I will be with you even unto the end of time. So we're not doing this on our own, and we're not just a bunch of young people, present circumstances accepted. We're not a bunch of young people trying to figure out life. We've got God. We've got hope. There's somebody pretty famous, you might have heard of him, said, come to me, all you who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You know where to find him? If you don't know, you can look at my heart. But he's in your heart too. Come to me, all you who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You're a launch pad. You gotta start, if you've got the joy of God, some of you need to tell your face. Because I'm suffering for the Lord. Oh. He's not asking us to suffer for him. He says, are you willing to die for me? Oh yeah, we could do that. Well, are you willing to live for me? Are you willing to get out there and find those people who have no hope and drag them into church and love them and honor them, regardless of what they look like or who they are, what they smell like? Love them. Draw them to the Savior. Let Christ deliver them. Give them the hope you have. And then your organization is going to absolutely go. And your church is going to grow. And people are going to say, I want to buy into that organization. Here's my checkbook. It's living by the faith that we have in Jesus Christ, knowing he has faith in you. He's bought into you. He paid everything for you individually, He died for you and for me. Let's remember that. You, at your age, are going to be the savior of the world, not me at my age. You are on. You can't sit back because the time is running out for this old world. We're running out of time. If Christ came today, think of all the people you could have talked to, you didn't talk to, who are not going to be with you in heaven. We have to have a sense of urgency of what we're doing. I inadvertently, accidentally led 3 people to the Lord about a day or 2 after I was saved. Didn't know what I was doing. They just asked, how'd you change? And I told them. I found what I was looking for. I found Jesus Christ. I want that. Don't wait until you have a PhD in theology. Go. Make disciples. Be part of the launch pad. Be excited about Christ. Be happy about it. We are to bring glory to God and to enjoy Him forever. Let's start enjoying Him. Let's start coming together and talking about the issues, finding solutions, but don't let that stop you. Be the launch pad for the community. Build your churches by building relationships. And of course, the first relationship is your relationship with Christ. We're not a religion. We're a relationship with Jesus Christ. Have faith in Him. Have confidence in Him. Go. Bring people to Him. Save this world, even if it's just one person at a time. And then disciple them. Well, those are my thoughts.
God has given us the conquer, and God is not poor. God doesn't really need our money. Church is not corporation. And one thing I saw, actually, God opened up the door. I visited Alice's church, Seattle Overlake Church, that Sunday, and I was so blown away how God opened the door to another about to close church, another Iranian church. The pastor looked for Sunday school teachers all everywhere, all the American churches, and all the American churches said, oh, the time is like 3:34, I can't make it. But there's one Sunday school teacher in Alice's church, and the church is very family oriented. And she said, okay. And God opened the door to preach the gospel to young remnants of the Iranian church. That's how God saved that almost closing doors of Iranian church and also raised up the Iranian remnants. So I was so blown away by God's brilliance. And I also serve as an elementary Sunday school teacher, and I didn't know that could be a platform to globalize. But the small devotion that I give at the church could be a platform. So God allowed me to realize that, and thank you, Pastor Schneider, for faith-based speech. Do you guys have any comments about how God opened the door to another church outside of our organization?
I have some question. My first goal is to be a college student very soon in 10 years. 10 years. That's right. I think the New York City actually YBAWM is doing very good at connecting the college students and the young business people. So can you kind of introduce actually the YBAWM
plan to actually connect to college students between the business people and I mean the big picture one and what you are doing to the new
So what we found was when you give somebody a title, they start doing a lot of work. And so what we did was we appointed a college student to be a undergraduate student liaison, and she's a student at NYU. Her name is Sharon Kim, and then a graduate student at Columbia University studying economics named Kitaeon. He's a graduate student liaison. So we did this strategically because one of the things is once people graduate from college, like they go off into the world and get influenced by that. And I was speaking with the remnant yesterday. She left Tarakbang when she was in college, but then she came back and she's a member of our YBAWM team. And I asked her why, and she said because it was she was under so much oppression, and so she came back. So what we did was we've appointed students that are actually in the field. They know everybody else. When a new remnant or a new person is coming into our city, they can easily connect them with us. Through Sharon, there's actually been many doors of evangelism that's actually opened up in our region. She's an amazing person. If this is recorded, send this to her. She'll be so happy that I'm talking. Because I always yell at her because I'm like, you're not doing your job and you need to work harder. But she purposely moved into this house on 79 White Street. It's in Chinatown, and I visited it, and it's like if you've seen the movie Seven, it looked like one of the homes where like one of the guys was murdered. It's a disgusting place, and it's not up to code. And there's like 10 people that live in there, and rooms are separated by like curtains. Like if people are on drugs or they get drunk, they'll like go into like their neighbor's room, and it's a very, very dysfunctional place. And the people that are in there are not homeless people or like there's a guy who went to Stanford. He's just in a very rough place mentally, and so that's where he's living. And the living environment is probably a reflection of what's going on in his head. But the reason why I bring this up is Sharon, she chose to live in there to be a witness. It is amazing. And what she did was she found people, and what did she do? She brought them to our YBAWM people. And they couldn't come into the worship initially because there's like this short Korean guy that's like talking about leverage and 138, and they just couldn't get it. But what we had was one of our members, Hyunjun, before we started our worship, because we had new members, would do the way of salvation. He would draw the cross. But like that's how we're reaching the young people. So that's how we're trying to connect with people that are not only like, oh, like I'm a remnant from Texas and I'm gonna like move to New York and I'm cool and I'm smart and I might visit your meeting. No, there's like actually people that are in the city that are out in the field, and it's the college students, it's the graduate students like Kite that are actually bringing them in. And so that's our strategy so far. It's much easier for Sharon to connect with another college student than it is for me. But as soon as she brings them in, then we have like Chedi, we have a bunch of resources at the churches, and we can easily get them plugged in. But that's been our strategy so far. And then once we figure out if we can get them integrated into a church, it probably makes most sense for them to like, for example, like Pastor Chang's church, because they speak English there, and there's a lot of people that are around their age. So, but that's our strategy, and until we find something better, or you guys have suggestions, that's kind of what we're doing now.
Do you guys want to share anything, how you guys communicate with other churches? So, do you guys have any instances that God opened the door to another church in your area, or something that you have prayer topic?
I think our church case is a little bit different. Boston Emmanuel Church, we recently started renting a church building near Harvard Law School and started worship there like a couple of weeks ago. But turned out that the church is actually very abundant and very doing well. I think the capacity is about like 300, and they always have full capacity and 10 a.m. in the morning. And what they do is that they're very open to like homosexuality or single mom communities and things that like people have been kind of like against it in Christian. So I think we've been like kind of learning a lot about how their church is doing their ministry, and we share like one of the lead from the church actually attended our service and talked about like how their church and the ministry. So it's been a lot of eye-opening experience so far. For me personally, I live in Connecticut, so that I don't go to that church every single Sunday. But as this change is happening, it's been allowing me to like think about it, not just like a church for like Korean community, but like really to save the New England region as the whole, especially in the northeastern area. Like I think Asians always minority, and our church has been always that. I think majority of them can't really speak Korean, so we have to really think. I think some people mentioned about multi-ethnicity and stuff. Just to add on to that a little quick, like our church, like we try not to use the word multi-ethnicity because that sounds pretty weird when we're the one, we're the foreigners and they're here, like from here. So I think we always just trying to like go around saying people from all over the world or non-Koreans. So in that way, it's more for them to have the ownership of the church or the whole community and things. That even like very slight little things like, I remember one time there was a sign saying "Do not throw away trash here," but it was written in Korean. Then like obviously people who are speaking English wouldn't understand that and just neglect and do whatever. So things like that, like it's really nothing. But as I went to school in Connecticut where not many Asians live, it's just been a lot of little things I started paying attention to it, like how if I were non-Korean, how things would look a lot weirder than we think. So that has been, our church has been really working toward that, so that like even like non-Korean, not familiar with the Upper community at all, can still come and really enjoy the blessing of Jesus Christ and go home without like worrying about things like that. Yeah.
And also, this is not to discourage the missions enterprises. It's just that start with I think Pastor Schneider was trying to say that start with 101 and also go and preach to all nations. So we could always continue on with our brainstorming and the vision that God has given us. And just do you guys have any questions? I know some of you, I think a lot of you are startup or thinking about startup. If you're working, you want to build like a side project. What kind of struggles that you face that you aren't able to, I guess, fully monetize or fully, I guess you weren't able to connect your covenant and dream and vision with the actual product. What does this make any sense? So what struggles did you face while building your startup? Yeah. Or your side project?
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe not even our side projects, but our main projects. If our main project's not evangelism, then something's wrong. And I'm not telling you guys to start evangelizing. I'm saying that fundamentally, I think what you guys have going on in New York is pretty amazing, because it's like you guys are meeting together, but it's not just that you're meeting together. You know, that's like Acts 1:14. You've got 1:3-8. Everyone already has that sense of only Christ, and you're finding people out in the field who you really want to invite, right? And for me, like, I've just been back in LA for a couple months, but already, like, I see all my friends, they're completely, especially the ones who grew up in my church, a lot of them have left. They're either going to different churches, or some of them aren't even going to church at all. And the answer that I received, even from the first lecture today, was, you know, just do a Taraklan one-on-one first. And then I realized for me, like, after I find people and like really like get them into it, like when they see Christ in me, they're like, wow, yeah, it's just like Pastor Snyder was saying, oh, I need that, right? When that need arises, where you want to gather them, but you don't want to necessarily invite them to church, because coming to church could be a pretty big commitment for some people. They're like, oh, I went to church before and I don't really want to go. Is there some other thing that we could, like a little more like low-key type of event, like a YBAWM meeting, for example, that I could invite people to? You know, that's kind of the answer that I received right now, listening to you guys. So these YBAWM meetings, this YBAWM culture, I get the sense that it must come out of necessity, and this necessity comes when we are able to see the spiritual situation properly in our fields, and then we see at least for me, all of my friends who have gone away. Wow, I need to do one-on-one Taraklan with these people. When they start getting it, it's like, oh, how can we meet together with more people, and really have like this. Yeah, when I hear the word networking, I don't know about you guys, but I hear I don't know, it's like, it's so worldly. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just like hate that word networking. But fundamentally, if we call it like Taraklan, I'd be like, yeah, all right, that's legit. I understand that. It's cool. Because networking just seems it's so like, I don't know, it's you meet other people so they can help you do your thing, kind of. But even Taraklan could be like that. I think when I was working on a startup, the biggest problem for me was I didn't have enough time. And I think Pastor Yu had that same problem, because when he talks about doing 30 Taraklans per week, like that's ridiculous. And so what did he do? He talked about this leverage thing. In other words, he found other people to lead those Taraklans for him. And so the problems if we're doing startups, and it's obviously a resource limited, mostly time limited problem, if we don't have the capacity to do it ourselves, finding other people to do it for us, you know, and that's, in other words, making a disciple, which is, anyway, I don't know.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Side projects. I don't have a startup business, but I work in government. So I belong to a professional organization called the International Association of Assessing Officers, and literally it's like property tax appraisers from all over the United States. And we actually have a membership due to be part of this association. And our association, what we do is we advocate property assessment, you know, and it's like such a niche thing, but we have a annual conference that we do. But people that have memberships, like the NRA, you know, car carrier member of NRA, you have to pay a membership fee. I think for YBAWM, we need to have a distinction of what a member is. And that would be a good distinction, a membership fee structure. What that also does is, I think it creates, it forces our chapter to be more organized. I think we need to have a budget, we need to be transparent with our money. I believe all chapters have a treasurer now, correct? So I think to be more organized, maybe that's a step that we could take, going into some type of a membership due. It doesn't have to be a lot, you know, but maybe a monthly due. It could be automatic. The reason I say this is because we have a men's group at our church, and it was always difficult. And whenever we want to have an event, we want to fund like, we're having a barbecue at church and they're asking, oh, we need money for meat. And like, it's so hard getting money from people, like $20 at a time or $50 at a time. So one of the members of our deacon from our church, he created this PayPal thing. So if you want to be part of a men's group membership, it was $15 a month. So all of us paid $15 a month. So we sign up, and you have to put in a routing number and your checking account number. Every month, it takes $15 every account. But $15 is such a small amount that you forget about it and you lose track of it. And our men's group fund's been accumulating from people that have left our church. They're only part of our church, still paying us $15 a month. They forgot about it. Every month, like when we have a barbecue, we need a meat, like they come to men's group. Like, our church loves to come to a men's group. We always have money. Oh, can you buy some meat for us? Oh yeah, let's look at our accounts, like $800. We buy the meat. It's no problem at all. It's small, $15 a month. You know, I still pay that for years. You know, and it's small, but it actually makes a difference. So I think you were talking about sustainability. That's a way to start. And also, what that does is, you know, you have to have a nonprofit, you know, account. That also creates an entity that, like Pastor Snyder was saying, if say someone sees value in our organization, want to donate, you now have a structure to receive donations. Tax write-off, right? So 501c, I mean, you have to get organized.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's not about money, but I mean, membership due, I think it's a good strategy to go for. And I think we talked about like kind of ministry thing too. Like you have your YBAWM meeting and then like it's kind of a ministry thing, but I don't know if that's exactly the direction for YBAWM because I think local churches do a lot of the ministry stuff, and for YBAWM I think it's a little bit different. Our mission focus I think has to be kind of geared towards more like I think what Pastor Snyder was saying about like a kind of a launch pad. Another value I think we have, we don't see it. If we're all separated, we don't have value. But when we're together, that network is the value. Our alumni, like I graduated from USC, we have an alumni network, and it's so valuable, that alumni network. Because if you're a Trojan, you go access that alumni network, and you could talk to people. You don't have to give the people internships, but there's a way for someone to contact that network. So we need to get organized. I think one of the things Pastor said was collect these people, individuals. I think we need to, as individual chapters, create, or at least know who's in our region. Like, who are these professionals? Have a list. Each chapter should know who's in the churches, who are the professionals, who they are. We need to, as YBAWM, keep that knowledge, keep that database, that network with them, because that's the value of YBAWM, it's the network. Just a couple of things I thought about. But I don't know, I want to do stuff. I do, but I'm always checking myself because I'm like, oh, is it my motive? Like, you know, because I've seen stuff like that. So I'm checking myself too. But I think Pastor Snyder, you're right. This is a launch pad. We need to go, we need to look out and make mistakes. You know, Mark Zuckerberg, I think, passed it on Facebook, you know, move fast, break things. Yeah, let's not be afraid to make mistakes. Let's fix it as we go, but let's launch because we have to have urgency. So,
yeah. Does anybody else have? Okay. Thank you.
But something just occurred. I just lost train of thought. Okay. You know, I don't know if this is. I've seen this in Korea a lot because you know, for the past 3 years I was stationed in Korea. Probably been appointed of some sort, you know, like 3-4 things already. However, we get appointed, but usually those are the members, core members, right? Those are the workers that worked. But then we don't have anyone to support us. You know, we have too many chiefs, but there are no Indians, right? So I think first, we need to have a clear duty description for every single one of us, every single position, okay? Like we need to, okay, if you're president, you're responsible for doing the presentation. If you're the vice president, you know, in cases absence of, you know, the president, you take over. If you're a secretary, you do the overall operation, review, and then treasury, you do what do they do?
Collect the money,
But you know, do the make sure. I think we need to have that clear duty description. So this is not just a appointment ceremony. And, okay, now we have workers and expect something to happen. Yeah. So you know, if we have the clear duty description, and each region has left and right limit of what we're going to do,
I like that left and right.
then you know we could do whatever we want to do within that boundary, right? I think that's really important because sometimes we have all these people that that's assigned. I think Pastor Snyder understands. We have people that has a lot of duty positions, but after a while, there's no real work being produced. It's just another ceremony, another position filled. So we have all this position or organization within our group, but it never grows. It's usually same like one person having multiple dual headed. And we don't want that. We want at least one position, that we know. Okay, this is my duty. I'm going to do this. If I can't do that one, at least I'm going to do this one. And I think we need to establish that. Position by position. Yeah. So.
Can I respond to that? So I completely agree. I think it has to be region specific. So what we did was we appointed 7 people to serve in an officer's role, and what we did was we looked at our region and we said, how could we be the coworkers, right, or the hosts or the patron advantages? That was the key question that we asked, and how can we help the remnants? Those are the two key questions. So what we did was, to Paul's point, we appointed 2 vice presidents. Whatever, we're just making this stuff up. One vice president, their role was vice president in charge of pastoral outreach. And so they were always communicating with the pastors, letting them know what was going on and how we could be helpful. The second one was vice president of remnant outreach. And David is in charge of liaising with Remnant Day, making sure that we're involved there. And then the treasurer, obviously, with the money. And then, in my mind, the most important position is actually Che's position. And so I told these guys who are like vice presidents, I'm like, dude, you guys are nothing. Che is the chief of staff. because she actually has the most important role because Che is in charge of our worship. So every night, on Friday night, she transcribes the business message, like at midnight, right, into English. She prepares, or somebody spaces it, if you get it somewhere, and she prepares this bulletin. And the worship, like, we know who's in charge of worship, what song, who's going to play the guitar, and she manages that. So Paul, I completely agree with you. And for us, I think it was a question of like, there's a lot of colleges in our region, so that's why we wanted like college students and graduate students involved as well. But I agree, if you can help define that, it's going to make it easier. And like Sharon, I said nice things about her, so I'm going to say some mean things about her too. Like, she's in charge of our social media account. But whenever she goes away, like she was away for this summer, so like I had to do it. And I'm horrible at like doing Instagram. And so, I yelled at her, I'm like, dude, this is your job. Do your job. So it's actually very good festival training for the remnants too. Because it's like, dude, what, you're doing this is your responsibility, man. You have to own this. And so, completely agree with you on having positions.
So I kind of want to supplement that a little bit. For me personally, I wouldn't want to focus so much on appointing people, because in the consultant field, you have multiple projects that are in the Spanish, weeks or months, but you get people from all over different regions. You still come together, work on a project together, be successful in separate ways. So I feel like one thing that's truly important is communication of goals and tasks. And everything that I've heard so far, at least, seems like we're still kind of building up. If we're having a launch pad or startup mentality, and it's really, we need to start outlining the goals and what the actual mission is, and communicate that across everyone, right? And once we have that list and everyone in the group and the organization has a common understanding, then we just put it up on the board and have people start volunteering, right? Regardless of appointments, yeah, you can have people that are more specialize or focus in certain areas of responsibilities and have those people oversight, people that want to volunteer to do those tasks. But I think it's more important to kind of have those clear goals and tasks kind of written out, like have a mission statement, right? Any company you go to, any organization you go to, you're gonna have a mission statement, a goal in mind. Even in the military, right? You have officers that are in charge of 300 soldiers, but they're not doing the day-to-day tasks. They're the backbone. You have the NCOs, you have the enlisted members that have the goal in mind. The workers have the goal in mind to go out, and you expect them to go out and do the tasks that they were trained to do or they volunteered to do. You have appointees that are kind of overseeing that, but all of them kind of have an understanding of what the mission is. So I feel like if we want to grow as an organization, as the young business persons, we need to start thinking about what that mission, that goal would be. Communicate that across everyone across the organization and start asking for volunteers.
Sorry, I'm going to talk again. I completely agree with you. I think there's a reason why Pastor Yu, during his message to us, he says, the purpose of the 237 Center is not to change the current training and the current core message. It's still 138, right? That's the core. But he says we need to build a system that can reach each individual remnant, right? And so I agree with you. Like, how do we build that? Again, I think it has to be region specific. Like what might work in New York may not work in other regions, just because like for us, everybody lives within a mile from the island of Manhattan. It might take 30 minutes to get there, but it's relatively close. Like I know in LA, it's like everything's spread out all over the place, right? So like the practical realities of maybe meeting all together is not there. But I think we need to figure out that core doesn't change. The core of what we hold on to and what we enjoy doesn't change. But what is the system that we can implement in our respective regions to reach each individual revenue? I think that's what we need to figure out. We have bylaws. Like there's Kite, it took him like a year. It probably should have taken him like 2 weeks. I yelled at him. I was like, dude, like study, but draft these bylaws. And so like we have bylaws and they state our mission and I'd be more than happy to share that. And I think we just got our nonprofit thing approved as well. But like it might not be relevant. So but that's what this discussion is about. It's about having a forum over what that culture should or could.
Thank you so much. I'd like to share just one thing. So actually, while serving YBAWM, God really blessed me and just recreating me everything from the gospel, because I think I learned the worldly way of doing jobs done as well. And I think when I first started serving the YBAWM, I really wanted to get it done, and if one person doesn't get it done, I give them 눈총, and like they say that that's like laser eyes, but but during messages I heard that if the person is not doing it, probably because the person doesn't have the message. So I'm like, okay, it's my fault. Okay, what message have I not been able to organize myself that I'm not able to motivate this person? And also I end up thinking that, and I think that since this person doesn't have the message, and maybe I'm not motivating this person, I'll just do it on my own. But maybe if I communicate with other officers, other people, and get advice from how to from spiritually. And one thing I realized is that when I interact with them towards them like that, like legalistic way, like why isn't this done? Like then that person, even though she or he is only like 4 years younger, they're gonna do the same thing. That's what I realized, and I'd rather not do it than them repeating the same thing to another younger remnant. And I really do believe that there's a way of operating things from the biblical standpoint. So I really need a lot of advice from spiritual aspect as to how to delegate, how to just operate not from the worldly standpoint but from gospel point of view. So I definitely want to communicate more with you guys throughout the year, and also be able to team minister other chief of staffs of other regions as well.
What's going to be abundantly clear is that like we all have different vessels, and all of our vessels are at like different stages of development. And one of the things we did, because I told our team, I'm like, you guys are not remnants. Like this is the team of the coworkers. All right. I hope you're enjoying the covenant, because we need to get to work. And one of the things we did was we had a book for them, and I made them read this book written by this guy named Jocko Willink. He's a Navy SEAL. And what we did was they were like hard-hitting truths about like leadership. What does it mean to lead? What does it mean to follow? And we used that and we recreated it within the gospel. So we would read it, and there'd be discussion, disagreements, things that we agreed with. But then we always recreated it within the gospel and tied it back to the pulpit message. And so the reason why I mentioned that on Jay's point, I'm discovering every single day, whether we're discussing stuff on our Slack channel or the Cacao, or trying to figure out like how are we going to set up a worship at a church, that like my vessel needs to be upgraded. And I'm so thankful because I see the younger remnants, like God is using this as a training tool actually to prepare them, hopefully, for when they go out into the field. So that's one of the things that our guys know. Like we're all like work in progress, and there's a ton of grace. But like also the expectations are like this is a team, folks. Like it's us. We're the coworkers, right?
So on that note, so how do we become more organized, right? Like, obviously, I'm a new believer, but I also this is the first time hearing about this organization. How do we now, everyone in this room, communicate and become a more integrated organization?
That's a $1 million question. So we had a forum about this with a team from Korea, and with Peter Lee, who's the head of North America YBAWM. There were folks that are in this room that are involved. I don't know, man. I mean, DK, if you can figure out the right way to.
The first thing I can do is I can probably start a survey and start asking people for information. You can get their contact info and separate it by region and specialties and stuff like that. I feel like if we have
Please. All right, yeah.
Please.
I mean, my alumni network is just a Google spreadsheet, actually, because I went to a really small school. But it's separated by regions. Maybe we can just start a Google spreadsheet and you guys can all just fill out your information.
Sure. I can use my company's like Office 365 platform and have a form survey.
Whoa. And then it would maybe automatically
so we
populate
can probably,
everything.
if we can all create like a Kakao room right now, and then use that to send out that survey, to start collecting information, we can probably do that. Please. So is there a Kakao room? I guess that's another.
There's a 1 million Kakao.
Yeah, there's like a billion.
Well, we should have one.
Can we make an official one? Right?
Yes, we should do that.
Let's get we're gonna just pick one of them to be.
I think why don't we just let's use Slack.
Well, I mean, one thing is, I think we've, like in our region, in Northeast, in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, we have a lot of, like, everybody, once in point, like, every quarter, someone starts their survey, like, or email, whatever, but then it doesn't get maintained. I think it's because, one, it's prayer. So, yes, we'll do it, but if it's not based in prayer, and if we don't constantly really have FaceTime praying, and what are we doing this for? Really for saving the closing churches of America, and also really raise up next generation pastors. And if we don't pray, it's gonna be another spreadsheet. So. But yes, let's start it now. I'll open up my.
there's a YBAWM-NA, has 127 members of YBAWMers.
Let's invite, is that it?
Is everybody there?
What's your, do you have are you keeping going?
Yes.
That's the one that you posted in.
That's one for social, but I can create another one for directory.
If you could tell director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could access it, you could have filled it out, you could have answered the survey, and I would say, hey, let's meet up at the nest on this Thursday.
Right, no, but
yeah.
if you kind of use this one to be like, hey, everybody put in your
Sure.
information,
Yeah, I'll do
then,
that.
then we'll be able to.
Yeah, as soon as we get out of here, I'll create one.
Nice.
And,
So that means everybody should make sure you're in this group. If you have no idea what we're talking about, ask the person next to you, or
come
ask
up
their-
and we'll add you guys.
Does anybody have last comments before we close?
I have a question.
Yes.
I know that like some chapters been there for quite a while, like, or I mean, you know, at least in YBAWM, maybe a couple years or 5 years for LA reasons. What other activities that you guys do? Like I know that you mentioned that like you know helping out college students or helping college ministry, things like that, and also like you know outreaching or helping the recent pastors. Like what other activities that like especially the YBAWM chapters you guys do like other than that? Because you know I know that you mentioned that you guys are still working on kind of mission statements. But like, you know, it's this is my third year of that participating the biggest people's retreats.
Yeah.
Since I graduated from my grad school. But then like this is the first time that you guys actually having like YBAWM type of meeting. This is the first time.
Yep.
I was always curious about like what's the mission statement of YBAWM and then what you guys actually do and then what other activities that you guys. I mean that you mentioned a couple of things about, but then what other activities?
Bro, I asked the same question to you. Last year I was like, hey, what's our mission statement so we can figure out our plan and like what we need to do. And there isn't one, so we made our own. Ours is, it's Acts 2:42. This is what it says. It says they were continually devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. So that's what we do. So apostles' teaching, we hold on to the message every Saturday morning and we forum. Fellowship, like we had a barbecue. I don't know, that's kind of fun. We did that 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like sometimes the guys will come over to my house, we'll have dinner, or we'll just go out and eat. And then like Chase says, we pray. Outside of that, again, because our focus is on the pastors in our region and the remnants in our region, each time, like another thing that we did for a while was we had a quarterly pastoral lunch where we would invite all the pastors to a restaurant and we would give them a report on what we did the past quarter, all the things that were going on, and then what we would do is say these are the plans for the upcoming 3 months. We would love your support and prayer. And then the final thing that we would do is we would have a specialist in one of the fields give a report on their field. So this feedback came from a pastor that wasn't even in our region. There's a pastor in DC who said, you know what I really enjoyed is talking with young people and them telling me what's going on in their field, because it informs how I minister to my congregation. And so that's one of the things we started doing. And so like Hyunjun, again, who works in the insurance industry, gave a report on the insurance industry, but he recreated it within the gospel. And hopefully that was informative to the pastors. Now we've done that 3 times, and what I will tell you is this: the number of pastors that have attended that lunch have gone down with each. And so we're not going to do that anymore because we've asked the pastors for feedback, and it's clear that that's not the most effective thing to reach them. But we've tried a bunch of different things under the title of like, how can we support the pastors and be co-workers, host and patrons them, and how can we support the remnants? The remnants, initially we had this like entire plan of like all the stuff we were going to do, but then there's a remnant system in our region, and that staff was like, guys, just come and serve here. So we scrapped everything, and like our staff basically just goes to Remnant Day, and they're integral servants there. So that's what we do there. The one thing we haven't talked about, and I think Che was hinting at a little bit earlier, is how do we develop a sustainable economy of light?
how do we build that company that's built for missions? And that's what we're trying to create right now.
What about like West Side, like LA?
The West Side, we're actually just starting to get together. For some reason, our young adult ministry was smaller up until pretty recently. However, recently we've kind of grown, and some of the things that we've done is focusing a lot on RU, keeping our prayers directed towards that. For example, a few weekends or a few Saturdays ago, we had our young adult evangelism school like worship at RU, and we invited all the remnants and young adults to come and worship there. And then we had a barbecue there, and we kind of had this, time of ministry, worship, and like just so we can keep people's prayers on RU. So we were considering doing that kind of like doing that as a quarterly thing, and we do also. We don't have like a worship thing set up yet that's consistent. However, some of us do go to the YBAWM meetings, like the worship services at 8 a.m. on Saturdays. But I think it's a really good idea if we start maybe having our own. And also, we just try to really try and get people to go to the young adult evangelism school that's on every Saturdays at 3:30.
What about North Cal? We don't have, we only have from the same region, so
And I was interested about like you guys could have longer time, and then like then you guys have more manpower. Then I'm sure reason we have like what we can actually cover in like half of California, but like we have need 1+1 church.
Yeah.
But like like what 4 or 5. I mean you mentioned 8 churches, like wow, huge manpower. Like you guys have a lot of resources and like there's a lot of activities like outreaching people like like professional fields like blah 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 blah. So like I was like wow yeah.
So statistics can always be used to mislead people. So there are, I think, 13 or 14 churches in our region: New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia. The core YBAWM members come from 2 churches, and actually 3, because actually Mark comes out pretty consistently as well. So, but that's basically it. And I would say like all this. The reason why I think when we started talking about YBAWM culture, we were like, oh man, like do like pastors' lunches and like book forums. I think if you just start with worship, and the most important thing that I learned about starting or restarting the chapter in New York was is a team. If you can start with a team of at least like 2 or 3 people, and right now we've appointed teams here. If you can start with those 2 or 3 people and just meet for worship, and not only meet for worship, but if those people gain strength, then people are going to come. I guarantee it. And then you can change the world in Northern California. But I would just say like find a time for worship, and like there was so much complaining. I was like, guys, maybe we should meet at like 7 because I want to enjoy the rest of the day with my kid. And like the college was like, it's so early, like. So like we did 8, and 8 it's so painful still. I get parking tickets every Saturday parking in Manhattan. But like we do it, and no matter what, if we do nothing else, we meet for worship, and that's the one constant. And I think because of that, we've been able to do other things. So I think that's where you start with the 3 people. You just meet for worship.
DC. You're from DC? Is there something in DC as well, or is it just New York?
I think DC just started.
Is there anyone here from DC that would?
Somebody was appointed, JT.
He's from the, that's business, not young.
Oh, sorry.
There's no YBAWM in DC, right?
Dude, so you're from DC? Like, you know when I spoke with Daniel, who's from North Carolina, like back at the college retreat, he was like, "There's no YBAWM here." It's like, bro, it's you, man. It's you and your girlfriend. You guys should do it. And he started doing it. The cool thing about DC is DC has a legacy of birthing YBAWM here in the U.S. So Mark is an original member from that chapter. Sam Huang was the original president of YBAWM North America, and he's from DC. So like, I mean that DC, the roots run deep there. So if you could restart it.
There are people.
Are there really? Okay. So then,
But it's just that they're not meeting
oh, they're not meeting yet.
at the moment.
Okay.
Not that I know.
Yeah.
But they can start.
You should totally do it. And yeah.
Just one comment here. I sometimes communicate with Kite, who's from
Yeah.
like my region.
That's
and
right, yeah.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
stole it
yeah,
from you.
yeah, kind of.
From
but-
high school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Go Bears.
Yes.
Go Bears.
Yeah, but when this YBAWM New York was launching last year, like he actually communicated his first impression about it, and then what he said was, I know so you're the starting members, but he said this is the outcome of the 16 years prayer from the pastors and 13 years prayer of the deacons. So I'm like, okay, that's the problem. So that's what we have to start with.
Thank you. So I think time's up. This is very, I thank God for this blessed meeting and also the blessed conversation. And we'll definitely keep in touch with everybody. And if Pastor Chang could close us in prayer.
기도하십시다.
Let's pray.
고맙습니다, 주님.
Father, thank you.
우리가 오늘 현실을 바라보며 또 미래에 대한 방향들을 찾아낼 수 있도록 은혜 주심을 감사합니다.
Thank you for your grace to look at the present reality and also the direction for the future.
우리가 이 정말 한 시대를 바라보는 영 제너레이션들이 가져야 될 귀한 대화를 나누게 할 주심을 감사합니다.
The young generation that look at this age, thank you for the precious conversation that we were able to have.
오늘 이 시간 우리가 이 모든 모임을 마치면서 두 가지 질문을 하기로 합니다.
As we end this meeting, let us ask two questions, Lord.
내가 구원받은 것은 확실합니다.
It is a sure thing that I am saved.
나도 확인하고 주님도 인정할 줄을 믿습니다.
That we can confirm it, and Lord, you acknowledge it.
두 번째는 구원받은 내가 무엇을 위하여 구원받느냐 하는 것입니다.
Second thing, now that we have been saved, what have we been saved for?
세상 사람들은 우리에게서 이것을 보기를 원합니다.
People of the world are looking for this.
구원받은 자들이 이 세상에 무엇을 하고 사는지,
What the saved people of this world are doing in this world.
무슨 영향을 미치고 사는지,
What influence they are giving to the world.
어떻게 어떤 생각을 하고 사는지,
What thoughts they live by.
세상의 모든 사람들이 주시하고 보고 있습니다.
That all the people of the world are looking at us.
여기에 대한 질문을 정확하게 하고 살아가는 것이 전도요 세계복음화라고 생각합니다.
Asking these types of questions and living according to these answers is the evangelism in life.
정말 간단한 질문 같지만 너무나 중요한 질문입니다.
Such a simple question, but it's an important question.
복음의 사람, 복음에 의한 사람이 되게 하옵소서.
Let us be the people of the gospel for the gospel.
복음을 위하여 사는 사람이 되게 하옵소서.
Let us be people who live for the gospel.
이 땅에는 정치, 경제, 문화, 사회 모든 면에 불신자들이 장악하고 있습니다.
All the politics, finances, culture are being influenced and ruled by the unbelievers.
이제 우리가 우리 후대를 통해서 복음의 경제, 복음의 정치, 복음의 문화 바꿀 수 있게 하옵소서.
Through us and our next generation, let us change everything into the gospel.
이것이 바로 내 안에 이루어진 하나님의 나라가 바로 이 땅에 이루어지게 하는 것입니다.
The kingdom of God inside of us, let it be spilled over into this world.
분명히 우리 안에는 두 가지가 결정되기를 원합니다.
Inside of us, let two things be certain.
하나님을 향한 고백.
Our confession before you, God.
주는 그리스도시여 살아계신 하나님의 아들이십니다.
Lord, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God.
세상을 향한 고백.
and a confession toward the world.
모든 나라 땅 끝까지 이르러 복음의 증인이 되라는 것.
To be your witnesses to the ends of the earth.
이 두 가지가 우리의 삶의 목표가 되게 하옵소서.
The two things be the purpose of our life.
감사와 찬송과 영광을 드립니다.
We give you thanks and all the glory, Lord.
지금은 우리 주 예수 그리스도로 나오신 그 은혜와
Now may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ,
하나님의 극진하신 사랑하심과
the endless love of Father God,
성령님의 내주인도 역사 충만하심이
and the indwelling filling and the guidance of the Holy Spirit,
오늘과 미래를 바라보며 시대를 살릴 수 있는 키를 쥐고 있는 우리 모든 심령들 위해
to all the people, the believers who are looking toward the future and the key that you've given us,
지금으로부터 영원토록 함께 있을지어다.
with them now and forevermore.
아멘.
Amen.